Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am the Red Shadow, and today, finally, I'm going to start doing my Summer Game Fest coverage videos. I just want to do 3 videos. This first one will be all of the stuff that was announced in the May PlayStation Showcase. That's been a couple weeks back now, almost close to a month, so I know this is old news, but I debated doing a video or not. I debated how to do the videos. I just decided I would take the top 3 shows in my opinion and cover them. So this video will be the PlayStation Showcase, then I'll do one for Jeff Keighley's actual Game Fest opening, his actual show. And then I'll do the Xbox and Starfield one in a third video. I'm going to go through each game that was shown in each presentation, at least by whatever decent lists I can find on the internet, talk about each game, and then at the end kind of give some thoughts about that particular overall show. I will say that in my opinion, this PlayStation Showcase, the first one that I'm going to cover, the one that was the most important for me, the one that I allowed myself the most hype and high expectations for, ended up being the worst of the 3 shows, and I'll talk about why as we get through it and at the end. So anyway, I'm going to try not to go too long on these, but I know how I am, and this could end up being, 20 or 30 minutes to an hour. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get going. Real quick, the expectations that I had going into this show was, since it was the first showcase since 2021, I expected, it was already announced that it was going to be just over an hour, so I expected a lot of reveals and games shown, stuff we knew about, but hopefully a lot of brand new stuff. But in particular, sorry, my brain went dead for a moment. In particular, I was hoping first-party stuff. What is Bluepoint working on? What is I'm going to completely blank right now that I'm on the spot as far as the first-party development studios are. But what's the new? Was the new Ghost of Tsushima going to be shown here? What are they working on? Were we going to see the Last of Us factions or multiplayer game? Were we going to see anything new from Sony Santa Monica after God of War Ragnarok? Were we going to see, more Death Stranding 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Were we going to see any of that stuff here? Were we going to fill in the pieces of the puzzle? Because we know Spider-Man 2 comes out this year. We know that Wolverine is in the future. We know that Last of Us multiplayer game is something. Obviously they did say it was being scaled down a little bit, but what was that going to be shown? What happens after those games? We really don't know anything about a bunch of, obviously they're making games, but we haven't heard anything at all. So that was my expectation. The show was going to be good if it was going to fill in some of those blanks, answer some of those questions, and give us some stuff that maybe we weren't expecting. So anyway, we started off the show with the new title from Haven Studios, the Jade Raymond company. The Jade Raymond being somebody who is pretty well known for the early days of the Assassin's Creed games, left Ubisoft quite a few years ago, I think. She's bounced around and worked on some stuff that I'm not sure ever was released. But now her studio is coming out with what appears to be a live service game called Fair Games, with the S being a $sign. And it just looked like it had the aesthetic of a Watch Dogs game, but it looked like team-based, kind of like Payday, but with multiple groups going in and stealing money. It was very loaded with imagery about the rich and too many billionaires and stuff like that. It just, for me, didn't look like the kind of game I would care about. Surprised that it was the very first game to be shown in the showcase, because I would think you'd want to kind of like kick it off with and make an impact, a good impact. But then I do remember that one of the original PlayStation showcases back in 2020 opened with Grand Theft Auto 5 coming to the PS5, but in the moment it made people think that it was the new Grand Theft Auto 6, and then everybody was deflated when they just saw it was coming to the next generation of consoles. So Sony is not known necessarily for opening the shows with bangers that everybody's going to love. The next game that they showed was Helldivers 2. I just know that there was a Helldivers a few years back. It was a PS4 game. It was kind of a top-down multiplayer game of some sort, and this had a really cool trailer. The vibe was very Starship Troopers, but all that they really showed was that it was another multiplayer game where they were third-person over-the-shoulder camera instead of top-down. And those multiplayer games like that don't mean anything for me. So then we've got a trailer for Immortals of Avium. This is apparently a game from it's EA, but I don't remember the developer, but I guess it was someone who worked on Call of Duty games and wanted to make a first-person Call of Duty style magic style game. First person, but spells and whatnot, magic, and as opposed to guns. And it looks colorful and flashy. If there's a story to it, it might be interesting. But first-person magic-based wouldn't really do much for me in the style that I saw this game. And thinking about the Call of Duty connections just makes me think that it's going to be a really fast action-based shoot at other people kind of game, only you're casting spells. The jury is still out on that one for me. Not to mention the fact that I feel like I've heard, it's been shown a couple of times, I feel like I've heard that it still has multiplayer aspects to it, and that would put me off as well. The next thing that was shown was Ghost Runner 2. Now, I haven't played the first Ghost Runner. I would have bought it if it had a physical release here in the US. I don't know if it's got an Asian release of some sort, but I would be interested in getting the first one at some point, so the sequel could be fun. But I haven't even played the first one, and I know it's kind of hard. That sometimes, takes me out of the equation. Next thing that was shown was Phantom Blade Zero, samurai adventure game of some sort. I guess it's a sequel or a spin-off to some Korean MMO or something like that, a mobile-style game. But the game looked really cool. It also looked like if it leans into, Soulsborne-style gameplay, that would also be a no from me. And the next thing we saw was Sword of the Sea, which was a game from the artistic mind behind games like Journey, The Pathless, and I'm blanking on Abzu. Abzu I've played and it was really awesome. The Pathless is something I'll play whenever I get a PS5. Journey is a game I own but I haven't played. I can't tell you how much the majority of multiplayer games turn me off. So even playing a multiplayer game where nobody can see your name, you can't communicate in anything other than sound, still turns me off to the idea of just matching up with a random person and playing it. But who knows, in the future maybe I will. The Sword of the Sea was pretty cool. That was probably, at that point in the show, the best thing that I had seen so far. After that, it was revealed that there was a sequel to the Talos Principle 2. I own the first one, but I haven't ever played it, just haven't felt ready to jump into some puzzles. So the sequel would interest me, but not anytime soon. Then we got a game called Neva. Very cool art style from people in involved with the game Grease, which I own but I haven't played. But it looked very interesting. It didn't really show any kind of gameplay, but it would be nice to know what kind of a game that will be. But that one's definitely on my radar. Then they showed Cat Quest Pirates of the Caribbean. So I own the first Cat Quest game. I've been wanting to get the sequel. I don't think you can buy it physically by itself. I think it comes in a double pack with 1 and 2. So I may have to get that and then decide what to do with the first game. But I'm interested in those little like role-playing games starring cats. And then we had what at first seemed like a big dud, but now I'm hearing people think it's pretty decent game. But it's a multiplayer game. It's Foam Stars from Square Enix. Looks a lot like Splatoon, only you're not just painting areas, but you use your colored foam to create walls or hills or things that you can use as terrain to move around on each of the little battle arenas. But I've watched enough coverage of the last week or two from Summer Games Fest for people who got to play it and said it was actually pretty fun. Hey, if a multiplayer game is somebody's bag, then hey, go for it. But that one would not ever. I would never even be tempted. And they show that Teardown is coming to the PS5, a very interesting like voxel-based heist game. Sort of looks Minecrafty, but it isn't a survival crafting game. It's just go into these maps, figure out a way to commit the heist that you're on and escape. Cool idea. The technology is really awesome, but not a game I would bother with much. Then the next thing that was shown was probably one of the biggest announcements of the show, and that's that Metal Gear Solid 3 is getting a remake. It appears to be called Metal Gear Solid Delta. It has a triangle, and a lot of people who were reacting to the show said that was the Latin symbol for Delta or something like that. A lot of people couldn't understand why you would take the 3 out of it, but I've been hearing for so long that a remake for 3 was in the works, and technically in the Metal Gear Solid series anyway, let's say the mainline games, because I don't know about the PSP games, but in the mainline set of games, Metal Gear Solid 3 is the first, it's the earliest in the timeline. So if they remake this and they don't call it 3 to confuse new gamers, they put the Delta on there, although I guess they could have called it Alpha or something like that. But they take away the 3. Notice, though, that the Delta symbol is a triangle, so that's 3 sides. It's a decent stand-in, I think. But I think that'll be really, really cool. Thing about it is it doesn't mean much to me because I don't really care for Metal Gear Solid 3. I don't care for Big Boss as being the antagonist. I'm a Solid Snake guy. So Metal Gear Solids 1, 2, and 4 are the ones that mean the most to me. That being said, I've never played 4. I haven't played 5, but I know that the gameplay is supposed to be the best out of all the Metal Gear Solid series. But this is something that I would probably play. Maybe if it's modernized in graphics and controls, it'll appeal to me more. But really, it has more to do with the time frame it's set in and who the lead, the protagonist is. And we got Alan Wake 2. That's a big one I'm looking forward to. I played Alan Wake Remastered last year, I believe, and had a lot of fun with that one. And the sequel is supposed to be a full switch from sort of like a horror thriller to just pure survival horror. And I've seen the gameplay and the trailers for it, and it looks awesome. So I'm stoked for that. It comes out in October of this year. We got a trailer for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, I'm a guy who's played a little of the first, a little bit more of the second game, and then I haven't touched any of the other Assassin's Creeds. I want to play that whole series. I'm really eager to see how it develops, and especially the last 3 games that were supposed to be bigger open-world RPGs. That really appeals to me. But Mirage is supposed to be a step back to more stealth-based, smaller world. Was supposed to have been a Valhalla DLC that they expanded into this own game, but it's a smaller game, so it's going to be, I don't remember the exact price, but maybe something like $50 instead of $70. So that's pretty appealing. It would still be something I'd pick up and put in my collection to play somewhere down the road. Then we saw a game called Revenant Hill. This particular website I'm looking at the release things for, they say it appears to be a Night in the Woods prequel. The art style looks very Night in the Woods, but the cat was a cat and not an anthropomorphic cat. So there's no way to say, there was no story really covered in that trailer. But it'll interest me, because I'm waiting on a copy of Night in the Woods on PS4 from Limited Run Games, so I can have a chance to play it. Then they showed a side-scroller called Ultros. Looked like a Metroidvania-style game, or maybe it'll be something like Blasphemous or one of those. It's a little bit more like a Soulsborne 2D side-scroller. And this website's saying inspired by stained glass. I thought it looked almost like psychedelic art from the 60s or the 70s. And I think kind of funny when they were doing their reaction, one of the people on their panel said the game looked like one of those glow-in-the-dark posters you'd find in the back of Spencer's. I thought that was a pretty apt description of its art style. I don't know if it does anything for me, but the next thing that we saw was Tower of Fantasy. I believe that was a very anime-looking, and it might have been some sort of an MMO RPG style game. I'm looking at what they're showing here, and I think that this might have dropped something that was shown in the show, but whatever. If I missed something and I don't remember it, then it's not a big deal. But Tower of Fantasy was something that was shown, and we got a trailer for Dragon's Dogma 2. Right now, I have a relationship with the first game that I tried it, and it wasn't clicking for me. It felt really slow-paced, boring. I was hoping for more NPCs and story to it, and I wasn't getting much in the way of that. And it was kicking my ass, I'll admit it. So I didn't play more than like 2 hours, I think, of the first game. But the sequel looks good, and definitely there will be some people excited for that. So the next thing that they show on here is the PSVR 2 segment of the show. So I'll run through these really quick. I don't have VR. I don't think I'll ever own a VR headset. I don't want to spend that much money to get sick. And I don't want to spend that much money to take a chance that I won't get sick. So PSVR titles that they showed included Resident Evil 4 VR mode. I don't know if that means the whole entire game. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. They did the entire game of Resident Evil 7. So I imagine that'll be the whole entire Resident Evil 4 in VR. Arizona Sunshine 2, that trailer was at least funny. Another zombie game. Then there was Crossfire Sierra Squad. That was more of a VR military-style shooter game. Looks technically impressive, but once again, that's not for me. Then there was a game called Synapse. This had been seen before. It was cool. Looks like you have a lot of, like almost like force powers, throwing things and throwing objects back at enemies, and has some sort of a roguelike aspect to it. Like if you get killed, you're taken out of this sort of like simulation and then put back in to do it all over again. And then there was Beat Saber coming to PlayStation VR, and it was available at that very moment. Oh yeah. There's a much more detailed coverage on this website than I was looking at. There was a game called Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. That was the other one I think I was thinking about. That's a Grand Blue is part of some sort of a fighting game series, or maybe it's just an RPG series. But I mean, this looked okay. It was kind of cool, but that was something that was shown. There was a Street Fighter 6 trailer that was shown. I'm not going to backtrack over this whole entire thing, but let's see. After Tower of Fantasy was Dragon's Dogma 2. Before the VR section, they showed Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. That's a VR one, but they didn't say VR until after they showed that trailer. We got through all that other stuff. Then they showed Marathon. All I know about Marathon is that this is a Bungie game. This is like a reboot of this game from 20 plus years ago that Bungie did before Halo. And I guess it's some sort of an extraction shooter. It's another online shooter type game, so doesn't do much for me. They showed Destiny 2 The Final Shape, which may be the last big update to Destiny 2 as a part of their 10-year plan that I guess they talked about a long time ago. And aside from the fact that Nathan Fillion voices a character in that trailer, it once again did nothing for me. And there was a reveal trailer for a game called Concord, but nothing else was shown other than basically a CG trailer. Then they, excuse me, in a move that I think was both made sense and also didn't, they showed a trailer for the Gran Turismo movie that's coming out in August, I believe, which turned a lot of people off, though, to see a movie trailer during a video game show. But I'm sure there were some people out there who were like, I didn't know there was a Gran Turismo movie. I would like to watch that. I don't know that movie does much for me. It's not a fiction-based movie. It's literally about a really good Gran Turismo game player who, and because it's a true story, it's about how this guy was approached to actually, I think maybe he won a contest or something where they allowed him to race real cars. Like, I guess I would assume sort of get some training on racing actual cars and then put behind the wheel of a car and became some sort of a race car professional. I don't know if he won a bunch of races. I don't know. The kid was apparently young, so I don't know if he's still out there racing or if he just had his moment to do it and he's not anymore. But if that sounds like something for you, they had a trailer for it there. I did think it kind of, when it popped up on the screen, it was like, really, are we going to take time for this and not show more games? And then at the end, of course, not getting the answers that I was expecting, I really kind of regretted that they spent a couple minutes on that. And we got Jim Ryan on screen. He said something about a couple of new accessories coming. I'll cover first some wireless earbuds. Cool if you like wireless earbuds. Now Sony PlayStation branded ones are available. They'll work with your PS5. They'll work with your phone. I think they'll work with PC. And then the other thing that they announced was what's called Project Q. This is a streaming device that looks like a PlayStation 5 controller has been cut in half, and a big, like, 8-inch screen or something like that has been put in between it, and you just hold it like that with a screen on it. But it's not a Vita, it's not a PSP, it's not a portable system that will have games made specifically for it. It's a streaming device that allows you to remote play games from your console, like literally from your console. It's not even going to have its own digital store for it, at least not as far as I've heard. This is going to be tied into your account of games that are already installed on your PS5 that you can access via Wi-Fi. Now, a lot of people said, well, I don't know if that means that you can just be sitting in your own house where you have Wi-Fi. I believe that it means you go on a business trip or a school trip or a camping trip, maybe not camping because where are you going to be camping with Wi-Fi, but let's say you go on vacation and you go to California and you're in a hotel with Wi-Fi, you can play games from what's on your console at home right there. Otherwise, what difference does it make? Too many people wanted to call it a Wii U gamepad, and that's something that you can use in your house for some games, and from what I've heard, it doesn't work great. I haven't tried it with my Wii U, but that's what... I don't think that's what this is going to be. This is going to be something that allows you to play on the go, where you have Wi-Fi access from what's on your console through remote play, and that's it. So for me, it's kind of a nothing burger of a device, because it doesn't do anything for me. But for some people it may. I just feel like the way Sony abandoned the Vita, left it dead in the water, and it was a committed, dedicated mobile or portable PlayStation device. I don't see how this thing is going to do anything. These companies are trying their damnedest to do streaming stuff when people don't really have the capabilities of doing that. And this is just, to me, it wasn't the thing to do. So they ended the show with a big trailer and gameplay stretch for Marvel Spider-Man 2. And in this, they said fall 2023. We did get a release date later on of October 20th, I believe. That was revealed at Summer Game Fest. I'll talk more about that when I get to that. But this was cool. I really enjoyed the first Spider-Man. I haven't played Miles Morales because I didn't feel compelled to grab it on PS4 when it's also on PS5. I feel like that was one of those I saved for the PS5. So when I get a PS5, I'll get to play it. They showed a lot of gameplay in a small bit of a way. I thought maybe they went a little too long on this segment, but it was their big culmination, their epic closure of this showcase. And that was how it ended. So I just want to talk for a few seconds here at the end of this about, once again, my thoughts on this show. We didn't get anything related to what Bluepoint are working on. That's a big one for me. I just want to know what they're working on. I've heard, and it may just be rumors or whatever, that they're working on two projects. One is their next big remake, and one is a brand new IP. And so it would be nice to know anything about what it is they're working on. It would be nice to know about Ghost of Tsushima 2. It feels like maybe that hasn't been officially confirmed, but everybody believes that's going to happen. Or maybe it was officially confirmed and that's all that we've seen. We don't know what's going on with Bend. We don't know what's going on with Sony Santa Monica. Admittedly, they just put out a big game last year. So, you can't expect... You cannot expect these companies to be able to just immediately pop up and say, here's another game, unless they're Insomniac, in which case, yes, that's what they do. They put out Miles Morales in 2020. They put out Ratchet and Clank in 2021. They're going to put out Spider-Man 2 this year. They've got Wolverine after that. Some of these studios are crazy, but like I said, there's just so many. Sony Santa Monica, Bend, what's going on with Naughty Dog, what's going on with Bluepoint. I'm at a lack of other big studios that I would like to bring up, but there's just holes, man. There are just holes in what's going to be coming up after 2023, and unless Sony is just waiting to do another showcase in September or October or maybe January or February, it feels weird to not have much of an idea of what's coming after that. At the same time, I don't think that games should get too far advanced notice, because then it just becomes where's this game? I think games should take as long as it needs. I think every game should take as long as it needs to be developed well and put out, so that it's not a broken mess. But I would have liked to have seen a few more things that appealed to me, a few more of the things that are kind of the Sony archetype, and maybe a few less live service games. I know Sony's trying to drive into that business as much as they can, but this had Fair Games, Helldivers, Foam Stars. Tower of Fantasy, or that Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. One or the other of those, I think, was multiplayer. Marathon, Destiny. You know, there was a fair representation of multiplayer live service games, and not as many, lots of indie games, lots of really cool indie games, as usually is the case. They show off some really badass indie games, but when it came to the big games that would really appeal to me, I got Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake, which I'm kind of half and half on, Alan Wake 2, some Assassin's Creed Mirage, promising, Dragon's Dogma 2, maybe one of these days, and then Spider-Man. So that ended up being my overall thought about it, was just I built up too many expectations because I thought they were going to answer big, glaring problems. What are the games that are coming out next year and the year after having Ratchet and Clank, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Miles Morales, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which of course was last generation, but that was just 3 years ago. Rebirth comes out next year, but we'll talk more about that in the next video. But it still feels like, and like, that's an exclusive but not a first party. Where's the rest of the first parties? Where do we need to kind of know what's going on? So anyway, yeah, I'm rambling and kind of repeating myself, so I will stop. Thank you for watching this. Like I said, the next video I will put up will be Summer Game Fest, and then Xbox and Bethesda, or Xbox and Starfield Direct after that. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.